have covered this report from the World Economic Forum, talking about the new way organizations have to think about using uh, employees in their overall game plan, right? Why don't you shed some light on this report?
For sure, I would love to. So, starting off with sort of the basis for the report, it focuses primarily on this idea of, as we move towards the fourth industrial revolution, characterized by things like artificial intelligence, virtual reality, the Internet of Things, all these components, it tries to seek out how that affects the workplace, specifically within the human resources, because traditionally, companies have organized themselves quite hierarchically, meaning everyone has a very static set position within the company. But what has been told throughout this piece is a focus more so away from that sort of rigid culture and more so towards a more fluid dynamic within human resources and how that leads into the other parts of the company as well. So it focuses primarily on the 6 key imperatives, which we can see at the basis of the report here. And what it sort of does is it categorizes those 6 imperatives into 3 main categories. The first is how we augment technology and use that through our leadership. The second is how we can use that to enhance employability and improve experiences. And then the third is how we use that to optimize employee management and maximize potential. So those are the basis for the report. And then it provides a bunch of case studies that detail how companies from a variety of industries, not just, finance or business, but also even more industrial sectors as well, how it affects all of them to the same extent. And so that is the basis for the report.
Okay, tell me something about a very interesting stat that I read in this report is uh, a little under a third of all CHROs feel they have the information they need uh, to chart along this trajectory. So what's missing right now in their understanding, and why is it such a small percentage of people leaders today are really they really feel they are in a position to drive this change?
I think that's a great question. So when we look at the traditional idea of human resources, that's normally been focused around dealing with people, whether that be addressing a company's hiring needs or internal conflicts. Very rarely has it revolved around having an extensive understanding of technology. And so what we're seeing nowadays is through this shift towards technology and the disruptive nature that's causing within the workplace, it is becoming more important for HR members to have an understanding of that. And that's not something they're traditionally familiar with, because if you look at university courses and college content, this is not something that people who pursue HR are really taught in school. And so it starts from there and then it leads into the workplace where now these people have to deal with issues that they aren't fully equipped to do so. And so that's why this is relevant not only to small companies and big companies, but every company, because every company deals with these sort of issues, and ultimately most companies will be affected by artificial intelligence at some point in the future.
So there's a lot of understanding for the need of this transition, but they're just not prepared. So there is friction coming from their own end. They want to do it, but they are confused how to do it. They don't have the right set of information and insights that can guide them to understand the technology fully and implement it. Is that right?
Exactly. So throughout the report, it continually iterates this idea that companies are aware that they need to change, but they aren't sure how exactly to do that. And that comes with a lack of understanding of the basis for these technological transformations. And this report sort of seeks to elaborate on, what those trends are, and so how HR personnel can utilize them and implement them into their own companies for the benefit of their employees and themselves.
Hmm. We've been talking about diversity and inclusion in this report, and I see this constantly coming up in various conversations. Much before it was, I read it in this report. It's colloquially used in business for a long time that we have to be inclusive and diverse. So why again do we have the same cultural, uh, uh, you know, standpoint coming back in this report when we're talking about the fourth industrial revolution? What's the diversity angle that we're talking about?
So what we're really trying to address with the idea of diversity is that not only diversity in terms of ethnicity, which is traditionally what's thought of in terms of diversity, but also, diversity of thought, diversity of interest and understanding and background, because ultimately, the marketplace is filled with people of different skills. We're moving towards what many people call a skills economy, meaning companies looking for people who have specific pinpointable abilities. And so the idea of diversity and inclusion is to be open to looking through the entire market and finding people who you might not traditionally find just by looking at, a regular job posting with thousands of people. So it's about going beyond that and trying to include everyone in your search to try and find the best capabilities for your company.
And that's very interesting. And lastly, I want to understand, if there's like that one big key takeaway that World Economic Forum is suggesting for leaders to really go, take from this report and implement on the ground, what would that be? What is that first thing that they need to do for shaping the mindset of their people?
I think that's also a good question. So I think if we look at the entirety of the report, the biggest sort of takeaway is that, in one sentence, companies need to be the change they wish to see. So what I mean by that is, understanding the fact that as a lot of jobs disappear, it is the job of the company to look towards reskilling and retasking those employees, not only so that they can still reap the benefits that they provide to them, but also so that they can provide those employees with a livelihood, a means of earning an income for their family, and utilizing these trends, which are going to come. Like, let's make no mistake about it, artificial intelligence is the next step for mankind. And the report sort of emphasizes this idea that it is up to companies to make sure that step is in the right direction. So that's the sort of main takeaway from the report and the basis for all of its findings.
Great. Resources. Thank you so much, John, for joining me on this preview. Great to have you.